Okay, good morning, or should I say afternoon, everyone? It's still morning. Hello, I'm Mehret Mandefro. I'm an Ethiopian-American producer, Emmy-nominated producer, also in the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. I'm also one of the co-founders of Realness Institute, and you're really in for a treat today because it's our episodic pitch. So, Realness is really trying to hold space for independent voice, independent creators across the continent of Africa. I personally believe we need our stories to be free now more than ever, outside of the systems of control that you are often confronted against as a creator. And that's really the genesis of this story, which I co-founded with Kate Pansegrau and Elias Rivero, my fearless comrades. And the episodic pitch is really a culmination of all of our episodic programs. These shows have been developed with a lot of love and care. For all of you who know in this kind of market, African writers are not given the time and the space or the resources really to work on our craft and our stories. I'm also a writer, so I'm speaking to you from that space. And so it's been a dream to create this space for these writers, and I think you will see from the stories that they are pitching, they show a very contemporary, fresh take on all 54 countries, if you will, although today you're only going to be seeing a selection of them. So I had the privilege accompanying these projects in development along with Tandeka and Selena, who are here, the front row. And we're really proud of this work and proud of these creators, and I think you will see that they have managed to stay true to their voices, which is the gold standard. So without further ado, first up is Chantel, which a South African crime story, which is a supernatural thriller.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our episodic pitches. My name is Chantel Clark. I'm a South African writer and director. This project of mine was developed with the support of Realness Institute, as well as a Swiss organization called the Storyboard Collective and Series Mania in the inaugural Authentica Series Lab program. I'm also currently in development on my debut feature film, Pale Faces, with the support of the Sundance Institute, Realness as well, and the Gotham. But my love for storytelling actually first comes from television. And this also led me to the decision to work in the casting department on two Emmy-nominated HBO shows, Emmy-winning actually, sorry. Succession, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, and Mayor of Easttown, which is about another female detective who we know and love. And this brings me to my project, which I'm presenting to you today, South African Crime Story, which is a crime drama supernatural thriller set in Johannesburg in 1992. As South Africa is transitioning out of apartheid. This period in between Nelson Mandela's release and our first democratic election was some of the most tumultuous in our country's history, and it was a combination of this extreme hope, this optimism that we had for a bright future that finally seemed possible that was on the horizon, and on the other hand, this intense fear that the political tensions might boil over into civil unrest. Now, white South Africans in particular were experiencing this extreme paranoia about their future in the country, and this allowed racist conspiracy theories of a coming white genocide, retribution for their sins, to spread like wildfire. The church, the state, the police, and also the media stoked these white fears up into a demonization of anything that represented progress for the country, anything that was black, including our incoming leadership, as well as African traditional religion, African spiritual practice, and healing. Basically anything that was progressive, white South Africans were taught to fear. Now, it's in this environment that Detective Charlotte Ngoyi, who has been a detective in training for almost a decade at this point, is finally given the first chance to prove herself on her first murder investigation. Up until this point, she's had to navigate this incredibly difficult territory. It's really been an act of survival as the only black woman in an all-white, all-male police force, specifically in her precinct. And sorry, lost my train of thought there, but I'm coming back. It's coming back. And it's on her first murder investigation that the victim is Lebo Mumbedu. She is the daughter of returning political exiles who are taking part in the formal negotiations to end apartheid. But she's also the first black student at a recently desegregated all-girls private school in Johannesburg, which is much like the one that I attended in the 90s. Now, it's not clear whether Lebo's death was murder or suicide, but it's not going to be Ngoyi's case alone. The presence of occult symbols and objects found at the crime scene attract the attention of the Occult-Related Crimes Unit, which is led by Dr. Johannes Mehret. And he is a supernatural crime expert, but also an extremely conservative white Afrikaans man. And he really believes that he's on this crusade against the evil that has a grip on South African youth and the devil. And so he whips up these conspiracy theories, clouding Ngoyi's investigation in fear and paranoia, and creating this hysteria that Lebo and her family have brought the devil to the white suburbs. But Ngoyi's not going to let him win. She's determined to get justice for Lebo. The only problem is that in order to do this, she has to dig deep into herself and uncover really old wounds that she's hidden away for this decade in order to survive in this violent white world. And as the crime progresses, Ngoyi realizes that this case is extremely personal for her because she too is the child of exile. Her father was in exile, but unlike Lebo, Ngoyi didn't have a chance. She didn't have the opportunity for the bright future that the new South Africa is promising, something that was now also denied to Lebo. Ngoyi makes a misstep in the investigation and she's taken off the case. But she's determined to solve it anyway, and she does get justice for Lebo in the end. But because she wasn't officially on the case at this point, she gets no recognition for her work. And so as the new South Africa dawns in 1994, Ngoyi quits the police force. So South African Crime Story is inspired by my own experience and informed by this experience of being raised as a white South African in the 90s in this environment of fear and paranoia. And I was expected to internalize these fears and then act upon them. But it's very important for me in South African Crime Story that we go on the journey and we see everything through Charlotte's perspective, because what's happened in present-day South Africa is that these unresolved fears have solidified and manifested themselves in this extreme violence against women, and particularly black South African women. In many ways, we haven't moved beyond our transition years, and we're still in the battle for the soul of our nation. Thank you. I did want to add that I do have a pitch deck and pilot script available, and we're moving from early development into mid-development. Thank you so much.
One thing I forgot, you guys have headphones at your chairs. I highly encourage you to use them because it will drown out the other sound. Oh, no. Okay, psych, choking. So cleanse your palates, cleanse your palates. Next up is Sandra from Nigeria with a romantic dramedy, To Lagos with Love.
Good afternoon, everyone. Or as we say in Nigeria, how far? My name is Sandra Madu. I'm an actor turned writer producer with 8 years of experience in the theater, film, and TV industries. I'm also a Realness alum of the Realness Institute Episodic Lab of 2022. I'm excited to be sharing with you a project that's currently in development titled To Lagos with Love. It's an 8x40-minute romantic dramedy that explores the conflict between personal desire and culture. So in Nigeria, well, Nigeria generally is in many ways a traditional society and a little patriarchal. Okay, a lot patriarchal. So when I tell people that I live in Lagos, the usual response is, why? But there's a saying that Lagos is not Nigeria, and in many ways it's not, but in some ways it is. As a young woman, excited to explore all the opportunities that Lagos had to offer, I was often met with unsolicited advice on how to present myself as a woman in my communities and even in my relationships. Oh, sorry. But I discovered that there was so much more beauty to Lagos than what meets the eye. And that's what also helped me discover that there was so much more to me as a person than what meets the eye. To Lagos with Love was written as a love letter to the city that taught me so much about myself. But I also wanted to explore what it really meant to be a young woman trying to find her way and find love in a society that often tried to define what that looks like. And challenge the notion that the long-standing notion that a woman's highest achievement was a husband and children. So meet Amara, a disillusioned Nigerian Canadian living in Vancouver. Though she's working a corporate job at a marketing firm in Vancouver, engaged to Mr. Right, she seems to have it all, but she's torn between her creative aspirations and the demands that have been placed on her by her family, more specifically her mother. But when she's overlooked for a promotion that she's worked really hard for, Amara finds the courage to resign and ends her engagement in the process. Now reluctantly returning to Lagos for a family wedding, Amara gets a glimpse into the kind of life she can have in Lagos. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought again. So she gets a glimpse of the kind of life that she can have in Lagos. And it's a city that's teeming with opportunity and inspiration. So when it's time to go back to Vancouver, Amara decides that she's going to stay in Lagos and launch a podcast. Now you can imagine what her mother would say in response. Amara, you're trying to do what? Shame me. But even in the face of her mother's pushback, Amara is determined to make her dream a reality. Yet, as she works to get her podcast off the ground and uncover the untold stories of Lagos life, Amara finds herself caught in a romantic entanglement of sorts between two men. On the one hand, we have Chidi, a wealthy media entrepreneur who also happens to be Amara's former flame and is now trying to toast his way back into her life after breaking it many years ago. Then we have Benji, a self-made chef turned restaurant owner who catches Amara's heart but seems to come with a shattered past. Both come from very different worlds, but both inspire her podcast journey in different ways. But as the determination and pressure to succeed on her own becomes too much for her, Amara returns to the last place she thought she would go, and that's to her mother. But instead of being met with ridicule and I told you so's, something that a lot of African moms love to do, Amara is met with compassion and understanding as her mother reveals that she too herself wishes that she could have made the same choices or had the courage as Amara to make different choices when she was younger. This revelation gives Amara a newfound sense of purpose, realizing that in forging her own path, she's inspired others to do the same, including her mother. Now, as she chooses herself, Amara is able to step into a new version of who she is as Amarachi. Now, this story is very dear to me because I once was Amara. I grew up in a very traditional Igbo family, and as the only creative in a household of doctors, I often felt like the black sheep, desperately trying to fit into what was deemed acceptable in our family and in our culture. But as I began to connect to Lagos and the people, including my own Chidi and Benji, I discovered that I wasn't alone. I discovered that not only was there opportunity in Lagos, but there were other people like me who were determined to get to it, even if it meant defying societal norms. As I began to step into my own identity outside of my family's legacy, my own Chidi inspired me to dream bigger and to aim higher in my own life. After all, he did it, so why couldn't I? And even though our story is still being written, our relationship is the reason why I believe so many young women today are craving more authenticity in their lives and in their relationships, but feel held back by the norms of society, culture, tradition, family. Amara's story is a reminder that it's okay to live life on your own terms, even if it disappoints others. And that it's only when we're able to embrace who we are in all our flaws and beauty that we're able to find love that is equally as real and complementary to who we truly are. This project is in early development, and there is a pitch deck available, and I look forward to diving deeper into Amara's journey with you. Thank you so much.
Okay, next up, we're bringing it back to South Africa with Dominique Jossie's crime drama, Fafi.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Dominic Jossi, and I am an Realness Episodic Lab alumni. And I was part of the first Episodic alumni in 2021. That is not the right image. You can also, you can just switch it off if it doesn't come up.
Could you switch it off?
Yeah.
Please switch off the screen. It's the wrong image. Oh, not that either, please.
Okay, guys, so you will just have to use your imagination for this one. I did send it, but I think there's some technical difficulties, but I'm not worried about it. Okay, so my name is Dominic Jossi. I am a filmmaker with 11 years of industry experience. I have written on a South African drama series, music drama series. It is a music drama series set in the 80s, and I've also written on a teen comedy series set in the 90s. I produced the South African short film, Address Unknown, and I'm currently in production with my first feature film for Showmax as a producer. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm also a colored South African woman. I'm a woman of mixed heritage, and if you had to ask me a few years ago, what are you? You know, what is your traditions? What are your cultures? What are you? I would say I don't know. And to be very honest, this would come with a sense of shame and a bit of awkwardness because I would just have no answers. So my only reference to my history or my heritage is through my grandparents, through stories that they shared with me, stories of survival, stories with lots of secrets, but also stories of hope and inspiration. And one of these stories is through the game of Fafi. Fafi is also known as Mo China in South Africa. And it is an illegal Chinese gambling game that was introduced by the Chinese South Africans as early as the 1900s in the gold mines. And believe it or not, Fafi is still very much alive and illegal and well in South Africa today. So my show, Fafi, is an 8-part, 44-minute crime drama series. It is a cross-generational story about two colored women. One is Jade. She is living in the present day, 36-year-old, debt-ridden journalist, and her mother, Sophie, as a teenager in the 1980s Johannesburg. So we intercut between these two worlds while we see how Jade is on her way to discovering her heritage and her legacy, and her mother is trying to escape it. So as we enter our story, Jade gets the news that her estranged Chinese South African father has left her, he's Lee Sin, by the way, has left her with his territories as he's just been murdered in a building blaze. And she is now in charge of his Fafi territories, which she has inherited. And so, against her mother, Sophie's will, Jade makes her way to Johannesburg in the hopes of claiming this seemingly lucrative inheritance, but also to solve the mystery around her father's death. Now, through discovering her father, she learns about her mother's past, involvement in the operation as a head runner. In the 80s, her parents had an interracial love affair where Sophie convinced Jade's father, to teach her the ropes of being a Fafi operator, a role that is usually reserved for Chinese-born males. Now, back in the present, Jade unearths a web of corruption, intrigue, and violence as her father's late deputy, Tyrone, wants to claim these territories for himself. She learns that he aided her parents to expand the gaming area and territories together, but when Sophie fell pregnant with Jade, she escaped Fafi, ran away, changed her name, moved to Cape Town to protect her daughter. Now, in the present, Jade She embeds herself in the game and rises up the ranks. And she learns everything about Fafi, the good, the bad, and she really gets to see how these different communities, colored, black, Chinese, all helped each other interdependently to survive. So through her journey, Jade gains a sense of belonging and a sense of power. But ultimately, she needs to choose between her obligation as a journalist and her loyalty to a newfound family. So when she discovers that her father's murder is actually connected to a family member, this is when she sticks to her calling and exposes them. So my grandfather, like Sophie, was a runner for Fafi. And believe it or not, yes, he worked for the Chinese operator back in the 1950s. Until his dying day, he said to me, you know, I never had education, but I'm so good with numbers. I'm good with numbers because I worked for Fafi. So that's something that I always hold dear to me. My grandmother also ran a gambling den in the 1950s, and these were just ways that my forefathers survived. And I have to say that today I'm very proud of who I am. I'm very proud to be a person of not only one or two, but many mixed ancestors, mixed heritage. I've got Chinese heritage as well, so I think it's something that's really something that I am very proud of today. And lastly, so all in all, Fafi is a story about how knowing one's past can help you to find healing and also to help you find your power. And this project is currently in development. I have a pitch deck as well as a pilot. Thank you.
So we're going to stay in South Africa for the next one. We have a psychological thriller, Kwalanga, that Malilo will be telling us all about.
Hi. For some reason, my shoes started feeling way too small, so I'll do this barefoot. My name is Umlilo Mpondo, and I'm at my core a storyteller. My debut novel titled Things My Mother Left Me was recently shortlisted on the UJ Prize for New Works, shout out, and longlisted on the Sunday Times Literary Awards. I'm a mother. Also, before I'm a mom, I'm a Realness alum. They brought me here, okay? I'm a Realness alum. That's the right word. I'm a Realness alum. I participated in the 2022 Episodic Lab, and to them I'm so grateful, and it is such an honor to present the story here to you today and to share the stage with my Realness family. Now, I am a mom of 3 girls, and at the height of COVID in 2020, something tragic and magical happened to my family. I'd finally given birth to a boy child, and then a week later I had to bury him. So this transition from life to death happened in complete isolation, right? Because it was COVID, so no hospital visits allowed, and no one allowed through our gated communities. Just a week ago, in downtown Joburg, a hijacked building was set ablaze, and 74 people died, and only 14 of those bodies were identified. So why could they not escape? Because they too were trapped behind gates someone couldn't find the keys for. So here I am, a black middle-class woman grieving the loss of a son in isolation, trapped behind my own gates in suburbia, and them, the poor blacks, trapped in a hijacked building, grieving their attempts at a better life. And this is the story of Kwalanga, a story about 2 sisters who are trapped behind their own gates of desperation and isolation. Kwalanga is an 8x60 psychological thriller that is based in the year 2040, 20 years post the pandemic has bludgeoned the country. And it follows Umta, a wealthy black woman, mother and wife, who lives in the affluent city of Mpumalanga. Mpumalanga, a haven reserved only for the black diamonds of South Africa, right? It is set upon a hill symbolic of the resident's position in life. One weekend, when a trip doesn't go according to plan, Mta discovers that her 16-year-old daughter, Lisa, has gone missing in Jonalanga. Jonalanga, a city at the foot of the same hill where the downtrodden are, a place where the poor black got left behind, a place where Mta's estranged sister, Zukanye, still lives and is desperate to escape from. There are large iron gates that separate Mpumalanga from Jonalanga, large iron gates that open from the hours of 6 a.m. and close at 6 p.m., separating the rich from the poor for 12 hours at a time. But on Fridays, they stay closed from Friday, on weekends, pardon me, they stay closed from Friday evening till Monday morning. The poor are warned to stay indoors after curfew since the outbreak of the new paravirus, which is rumored to have started turning the poor into monsters. Mta, desperate to save her daughter, stays in Jonalanga after the gates have closed. She seeks the help of her estranged sister, Uzukanye. And Zukanye, who is pregnant, only agrees to help her if she only agrees to help Mta if Mta can ensure safe passage for for Zukanye into Mpumalanga, where she could deliver her child safely. Over the course of the next 3 days, the two sisters have to evade monsters that hunt after the scent of Mta's blood, convinced that rich blood will cure them of their ailment. And Zukanye's only chance of escaping Jonalanga is on a bus that departs on Sunday. She can't afford to miss that bus because if she does so, she'll be forced to give birth to her child in Jonalanga, where newborns have recently started disappearing. Just as she's about to save her daughter from the monsters that she's convinced have captured her, Mta discovered that her daughter Lisa never needed saving after all, because Lisa and her age mates, rich and poor, are plotting a revolt against the government of Gwalanga, threatening to obliterate the entire system by tearing down the gates that keep the rich from the poor, the gates that have made monsters of its people. The reconciled sisters learned that these monsters were never real and were in fact planted in their heads by the government's fear-mongering propaganda. With the journey, Mta finally defeats her own monsters of grief and guilt. That's the story, damn, I did that. So the story is really a gaze on the new black in South Africa, what it is to be black post-democracy, right? Rich and poor, and how we carry blackness in the space that we're on, right, that we have to exist in right now. And it is in development, and there's a pitch deck available, and thank you so much for your time.
Well done. All right. It's like the home team advantage. Another story from South Africa. We have Kanyo with Byline. It's a comedy, y'all. At least it's a comedy.
Good morning. So nice to see so many of you here. My name is Kanyo Mjamba. I'm a writer and director based here in Cape Town. Hey. I'm currently completing post-production of my short film, and I am also in development of a made-for-TV feature for one of the multi-choice channels. And like some of my colleagues here, I'm also a very proud survivor of the Realness Episodic program, the 2022 cohort. And yeah, I'm very happy to be here. So I'm a very curious person, and my curiosity has really thrown me around different parts of the film industry. And coincidentally, it's from my work in branded content that I became very interested in character development. Now, for better or for worse, my characters tend to be very closely aligned to some of the more embarrassing parts of my personality. Like Moali, for instance, this guy, this very happy chappy here. With his story as the lead of Byline, this 4-part comedy, I want to ask, what is your superpower, and are you tapping into it? So Moali lives with his father in Kukuletu, just the two of them, and Moali is about had it. He's like this close to doing something highly problematic to the old man because he keeps comparing him to his more successful older brother. Moali, the lesser successful of the two boys, was always the dreamy one, writing, scribbling funny stories in his little notebooks that tended to slip out of his mouth sometimes, and they were so detailed that they confused everybody around him. They didn't know the difference between fact and the stories in his books, and he even confused himself sometimes. So unfortunately, people being people, they gave him the reputation as a person who is a liar, and he hated this a lot. Which is why now we find him in his early 30s working as a very serious journalist. Yes, he's working for a tabloid, but he'll tell you it's an online news and entertainment platform. And he's not doing very well there either, because firstly, his boss wants more sleazy content, and Mwali is a bit of a prude. He's more concerned about the real issues in Cape Town, like the homelessness in the inner city. And secondly, he's really sucks with the tech that he needs to use in his job. It's while researching one of his projects, one of his articles, that he comes across Phil, an extroverted, out-of-work actor, childhood friend of his, who reminds Mwali of that creative side that he's been suppressing, his crazy imagination and these funny stories that they used to write as kids. And this sends Mwali down a road of, sends him down memory lane. And he ends up writing a somewhat problematic story, but something because he's got a twisted sense of humor. He writes a story about a homeless Casanova with 46 children on the street. And this is supposed to be a private story. But because he's so klutzy with the tech, instead of saving it up on the cloud, he publishes it on the work website as an article. By the time he realizes what has happened, it's already too late. It's gone viral. Did you catch any of that? Okay. By the time he realizes what has happened, the story's already gone viral, and he's now in this situation where he's the serious journalist who's published a fake article, and he's pissed off with himself, and he's also pissed off with Phil for making him this person that he's been trying to suppress this whole time. But Phil is an out-of-work actor, and he's like, well, dude, I've got you. Like, I'll play that dude. Like, let's do it. But his ethics kick in, and he's just not interested, up until he goes home and he finds out that his father is about to celebrate yet another achievement by his older brother. And the jealousy kicks in, and he's like, you know what, actually, let's just do this thing. So Mwali and Phil are writing this character, doing research, but they're also having their own little disagreements because Mwali is very pedantic about his character development, and Phil is staying too long in character because of his method and confusing the heck out of Mwali. And the story's popularity grows in the public, and donor money starts coming in, and Mwali's conscience starts chowing him, but he's also finally catching a whiff of success. In each episode, we see Mwali and Phil fumble their way through creating this complex charade of theirs and overcoming their own cultural differences, and actually start to enjoy the whole project. Because Mwali's writing fiction again, Phil is finally acting. And now they're doing this massive recruitment campaign for people to be a part of Phil's large family. When they finally land a large pot of government money, Mwali starts to see the positive impact and the scale of his lies. He learns that his imagination is his superpower. And because of this, he begins to transform as a person. He develops the courage to accept himself and care less about the approval that he's been seeking. This story includes themes of masculinity and self-acceptance. I myself picked up a stray and peculiar creative gene in my family, which has led me to some unpredictable places full of exhilaration and scared shitlessness and things in between, kind of like what I'm putting myself through right now. But it's worth it because I don't know any other profession that would allow me to share with the world my inner Mwali in this way. And for those of you that are wondering, yes, I used to be a journalist, but no, I've never published a fake article. I love comedy. It gives me a way of dealing with life, with the ups and downs of life. And unfortunately for my friends, I also like to be funny. And I mean, my wife tells me all the time that I'm funny, even though that's usually when I'm trying to be serious, but still. This story byline focuses on a small snippet of black and brown people who call Cape Town home. Before some of you get too excited, there's no gang violence here. I am interested in the real stories of people who take themselves sometimes a little more seriously than they should. People who are trying to tap into their own superpowers to to impress their parents. And even if it should all be taken with a pinch of salt sometimes. So Byline is in early development. I have a pitch deck, and for those who are serious, I have a small little handout here to add to your list of handouts already. Thank you.
All right, next up, we're heading towards East Africa with a neo-Western from Kenya. In Kop, we have Angela Wamai.
Hi, I am Angela Wanjiko Wamai. I am a Nairobi-based filmmaker. I work as an editor. Last year, though, I also directed my debut feature film, Shimoni, which premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival. Thank you. And won at First Paco early this year, the Bronze Stallion. Thank you. This film gave me the opportunity to explore themes that are dear to me. Fatherhood, generational trauma, freedom, bitterness. I tackled these same themes in the television show that I'm here to present today. And with this show, I specifically ask one question. Can anger be used for good? NCOP is a neo-Western drama series similar to shows like Yellowstone. It is told through one dysfunctional Kenyan family and is set in a fictional frontier town in Kenya's vast and volatile ranchland, a town known as Nkop. Nkop is also the Ma word for soil. Ma is the language spoken by the Maasai people. Nkop starts with a 65-year-old man dancing to some cool Rumba music under the hot Nkop sun in the middle of a vast ranch. His every dance move taunting 30 or so other men who surround him, dressed in bright red blankets with AK-47s pointed at him. Day turns into night, and a woman, Lorna Marwa, is jolted out of her sleep by the sound of a gunshot. Her husband, this man we have just seen performing this deadly dance, has shot himself in the head and catapulted her to the head of family and the center of Nkop, this hot, lawless, violent world that is particularly oppressive to women. Lorna soon finds out that her husband, before his death, sank their family into a huge debt acquiring a neighboring ranch. And as you can imagine, she is furious. She determines to prove that more than mother and wife, woman is savior. Her discovery of niobium, a mineral under the neighboring ranch, gives her that opportunity to be savior. She always knew that her redemption would come from the land, so she determines to enable its mining. But there are many things in her way. There is a stepson who is part inheritor of that ranch, a powerful politician, and a Kenyan cowboy who want that land. And then there are the herders, the men in bright red blankets armed with AK-47s with history on their side who are currently occupying that ranch. Lorna obliterates all her opposition, and soon prospecting for the mineral begins. And from this point on, we watch as Lorna decays. She becomes the oppressor, upholding every rule that has been used to oppress her. Finally, her sons and the community rise up against her. They organize a peaceful protest, which turns violent when a Molotov cocktail is hurled at the equipment and everything is set ablaze. And as Lorna watches everything get consumed by the fire, she is forced to reckon with herself. She realizes that her bitterness has turned into an anger that has consumed everything, even her opportunity to right the wrongs committed against her. She calls off the niobium project. Why do I want to tell this story? I have two answers to this question, and the first lies in the place that Nkop is set, Kenya's ranch land, and very specifically a place known as Laikipia. It is beautiful, it is volatile, it is vast, and I find it so intriguing because it has this strange resemblance to the American Wild Wild West of the movies. The Kenyan cowboys, the descendants of British settlers, own huge amounts of land, and the Maasai, the original inhabitants of this place, are landless. It is a place that has suppressed decades of historical land injustices. And these injustices bring me to the second reason I want to tell this story. I lost my father early in life, and the trauma of losing him, his leadership, his protection has made me very attuned to my country's struggle with faulty fatherhood. You see, our post-independence government, our founding fathers, had every opportunity to fix these historical land injustices, but they didn't. They upheld them. And that's why even today, places like Laikipia are devastated by violence. And this makes me very, very angry. And this anger is what led me to Lorna, a woman who has every right to be angry, but who's destroyed by her anger. And I feel like that's where we are as a people. We have every opportunity, we have every right to be angry, but we also risk being consumed by this anger and destroying everything. But as NCOP will show, anger can be used for good. It can be used to heal. We are currently in development with this project, which was part of the inaugural Realness Authentica Lab. I have a pitch deck and a pilot episode ready, and we are looking for partners to journey with us as we explore these ideas of contested lands, contested histories, contested souls. Thank you very much.
Staying in the East African region, we have a comedy drama, Bush Camp, from Hussein.
Hi everyone, my name is Hussein, and I'm from Kenya, as you said. I'm a writer and creative producer for the past 8 years, and I'm gonna catch a moment here, 1 second. Thank you. The first series I developed was an NGO comedy, which I'm currently in development of. Last year, I was one of 6 participants of the Realness Episodic Lab 2022, which led me to develop this series. So, 1 sec. But before I became a writer, I used to work in the hotel industry. And it was a disastrous career move, to say the least. I do not recommend it at all. But I had different experiences from colleagues who were caught with their pants down, in the pool, in the laundry room, in the pantry. You get the idea. To guests moaning that they couldn't find the perfect pillow from the 75 we had on our pillow menu. It was ridiculous. So I decided I was going to do something else. So Bush Camp is a 6x45-minute comedy drama series that follows estranged siblings who inherit their father's luxury lodge, their late father's luxury lodge, in the middle of the Masai Mara. They are forced to contend with their jaded staff, eccentric guests, and outsmart their scheming stepmom, who's out to take the camp from under them. So they have their hands full. This upstairs-downstairs format is more than a series that looks behind the scenes of a hotel, but digs deeper and looks at a family trying to come together. Welcome to Elephant Point Luxury Bush Camp. The high season reopens just in time, and it's marked by the Great Wildebeest Migration and the death of the hotel's owner, Baba Wasilwa, who drops dead in the middle of the hotel lobby, quite inconveniently. So when Zuri arrives at the camp, she's usually the calm and controlled older sibling, but she is now forced to run the hotel, and she knows nothing about running any kind of hotel. At the camp, she faces off with guests and her. Sorry about that. Zuri tries in vain that. Zuri tries in vain Zuri tries in vain. Sorry, guys, just give me a minute. Sorry about that. Zuri tries in vain to reconnect with her estranged brother, Jacob. Jacob is somebody who is a charming but eccentric failed chef. He is trying to sell the hotel, but in the end, he's not able to because there are a couple of legal issues. Zuri has her hands full with guests and staff who are out to get her, and especially her stepmom, who is furious that the camp that was promised to her has somehow ended up in the wrong hands, in the siblings' wrong hands. So in the end, Damaris comes together with her stepchildren to try and band together and save the camp from foreclosure. But unfortunately, things get in the way, especially her annoying guests. But when the camp comes under threat. I'm almost through, sorry guys. So in the end, they do manage to save the camp, and just in time for Mama Wasilwa, Jacob and Zuri's mother comes to the camp to now.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay.
They're not important.
So I'm almost done, guys. So the step, woo. Wow. At the end, the camp's sibling, the mother comes to the camp and tries to take it over from her. I'm really sorry about this. I apologize, but that is Bush Camp. And I have a pitch deck ready, which is way better than this pitch. I swear. But thank you, guys.
In closing out our pitch from South Africa, we have Neo with the Kushono Langa. Kushono Kwelanga.
Hi everyone, my name is Neo Sibia and I'm a Joburg-based writer and producer. I have been writing for television for the past 7 years and I love TV. I probably watch too much TV actually. I've written on shows such as One Magic's The River, I've written for Netflix's Savage Beauty, and I've also written for Paramount's MTV Sugar Down South Season 3. And yes, thank you. I've also written and produced 4 feature films, which are currently streaming. The last of which was my first independent film, My Baby, Trading Places, which is currently on view, that I'm very, very proud of. Ukushona Kwelanga means the setting of the sun. This is a neo-noir #MeToo thriller. It's a 6 by 30-minute story that was created by me. This is a story of sunsets and sunrises and what they mean to different people. Our story follows Anathi Mtonga, who is a 25-year-old sculptor. But when we meet her at a sunset that brings her dread for the coming night. Anathi is a depressed shadow of her former self after being raped by her close friend Leslie after a night out. But tonight, as the sun sets, she has to face her fear. Tonight is a big exhibition in a career that could possibly be life-changing. And as she soldiers on, ready to face the night, something happens at the exhibition. Unfortunately, Leslie shows up. And as Leslie shows up, he claims that the sex that they had was consensual. He's not a rapist, he's her friend. But Anathi knows her truth. She knows what happened that night. Unfortunately, the confrontation becomes violent, and she kills him on a rooftop in Joburg. And as she washes his blood on her hands, her two best friends, Dikeledi and Esther, appear. Shaken, shocked, they did not know that their friend was a rapist. They did not know that their friend was raped and has become a murderer. Shaken, they decide that the only way is to help their friend. They decide to take the body and discard Leslie's body in a nearby dam. That night, the three women are sworn to secrecy, trying to bury the past behind them. As episode 2 opens, it's 1 year later. 1 year later, and Anati has met someone else, Nana. She meets Nana, who is herself. But this is herself before the rape happened. Nana is dynamic. Nana is vibrant. Nana is the life of the party. Nana is the light that Anati lost. And played by the same actress, we watch side by side as Anati and Nana both occupy the screen as two versions of the same coin. Thus begins the tale of two Anatis. 1 year later, Anati has become the darling of the art world. Nana has become protector, friend. She's the activist. She's the person that stands up for her. She's the person who's enabled her to have a life again, as Anati works at her art. Anati has also fallen in love with a fellow artist who promises a fresh start. But just as Anati thinks that she can forget her past, the dam runs dry and Leslie's body resurfaces. An investigation begins into who killed Leslie. An online campaign begins that goes viral, #Justice for Leslie, as Anati wonders where was her own justice. Now Anati knows that everything is interrupted, everything is at stake, and everything that she's worked so hard at for the past year could suddenly be taken from her. But her biggest obstacle is, in fact, herself. I believe that the most powerful stories are the ones that we tell ourselves, and in the story, it's the story between Anati and Nana. Nana wants a hold over Anati's life and threatens to expose Anati as the killer of Leslie's murderer if she does not have it. And thus begins Anati's battle for her life, for herself, and for justice. In the rest of the story, unfortunately, Anati is arrested as the justice system turns in different ways for different people. But as she's arrested, her court case splits the country as everyone tries to decide what is the true meaning of justice in a country where women have just had enough. And as the country splits, we find Anati and Nana on the other side reintegrated into one person. Because even though Anati is now imprisoned, mentally she is whole and she is finally free. This is the story of Ukshona Welang. I came to the story from a place of anger when I found out that a young woman who is very close to me was sexually molested. I was enraged, I was angry, I was ready to burn the world, to burn a perpetrator, but I couldn't. I was helpless, I felt hopeless. There wasn't actually anything that I could do. But I do know how to write. So I wrote the story as a way of reflecting, of contemplating, but more especially as a sort of love letter to the version of that young woman that I will never know because of what happened to her. As I went through development, I also started thinking about our own sunset clause in this country and about our own fractured identity, the schisms we have in our identity, trying to bury the past instead of facing it. Whereas true healing can only begin when we face the past of what we've done, what's happened, and what we also did to each other. Thank you so much. I have a pitch deck and a treatment for the first pilot episode.
So thank you. Thank you. For all of you who don't know, please book a meeting if you haven't with these projects. The whole idea of doing the development and the way we do is to hopefully make it easier for whoever is going to take on these projects. So please book. As well, we have the Southern African Locarno Industry Academy participants, which is one of our programs in its second cohort, programmed the Fame Shorts Film Festival. If you don't know about it, it will begin on September 7th. So our programs really are running the gamut now. And we have the artistic director, Lise, in the room. Could you come up and say a couple of words, please? It starts September 7th at the Labia.
Hi, can the programmers please join me? Thank you. Thank you so much to Realness for this opportunity. We've been working really hard for the past 3 or 4 months to curate a program, short film program. We have 32 short films from everywhere. We have from Senegal, from Kenya, and it's a great honor to be able to do this short film for the first time. And I want to give a chance to one of the programmers to say something about the program.
Hi everyone, my name is Larata Bukako and I'm with the Salia Group. The 9 of us have been working for the last few months now to curate a program of short films that we will be presenting this weekend from the 7th to the 9th of September. We have 32 films that we think are very impressive films from very talented up-and-coming filmmakers. We will be presenting some Q&As after some of the screenings. For any information on these, please go onto the website to buy your tickets. And we will also have tickets at the door for you to see. So we hope to see you all there. Thank you.
And that is the end of our program. Thank you for attending. Realness has a whole stand if you want to come and talk to us about any of our programs. We're doing everything now. Elias, would you like to say anything?
Just want to call Thad and Sandra to stand up, please.
Yes.
Our team members can facilitate meetings if you don't want to go through the system. Please talk to Thad. Sandra's also probably back at the stand. We can organize meetings with all the writers, both from today and the feature film projects from yesterday as well.
And also shout out to Thad, to Sandra, to Sheila, to Ethan. Realness has grown. It is not the 3 of us anymore. It is more people. So thank you for all of your hard work. Enjoy the rest of the market.